Okay, hi everyone. Daniel Powell here from Totally Speedway. I'm the publisher and editor. I'm here with Tim Savell, the General Manager for Speedway Australia. Tim, welcome and thanks for making the time to come in and be a part of this.
Thanks, Daniel, and looking forward to it. So let's get into it, shall we?
Okay, so first things first, just a bit about your history, Tim, and how your background in the sport and how you ended up as the GM for Speedway Australia.
Yeah, I guess I, like many people involved in Speedway, am a bit of a lifer, born into the sport over in New Zealand, obviously, and spent formative years getting involved in the back end of the sport, the admin side of things. Got a role at Speedway New Zealand, was there for 7 years, and then decided to jump across the ditch and help out over here.
What prompted you to make the change?
Look, I mean, I'd always, growing up, seen Australian Speedway and knew what was happening over here and that kind of thing. So, yeah, when the opportunity came up, I launched at it, with both hands.
And what's been the challenges initially when you first stepped into the role as General Manager?
I guess, everyone's got their opinions on Australian Speedway, and I was probably one of them, but actually getting in there, finding out what's going on, and how we can make a difference, it's obviously taken a little bit of time, but I think, we're at a stage now where we're making some progress, and it's been, a really good, enjoyable experience, and, we've got a lot more to do there.
How different was the running from being the General Manager at Speedway New Zealand to stepping into the role of Speedway Australia?
Okay, well, a couple of key differences over here. Probably firstly, Speedway over here is a lot safer, a lot less, serious injuries and things like that, so that was a big, learning curve for me, not having to, maybe sound strange, but probably not having to focus so much on safety as maybe I thought. But I guess the other major difference here is the complexity of the sport, the administration, the number of the divisions, the number of clubs you're dealing with, state bodies, all that kind of stuff, getting used to how, everything works over here. You probably scratch your head from time to time. For me, coming in from the outside, it's certainly a big dive off the deep end to get my head around it all.
And how was the state of Speedway before you arrived here in Australia? What did you walk into?
Look, Speedway is a sport that people are passionate about. It's obviously, come off its peak. There's no doubt about it worldwide. The heyday of Speedway was in the 1960s. But, I guess you and I both know what a great sport it is. It's a bit of a secret sport, but, it's something that delivers amazing entertainment and a whole load of experiences, life experiences for competitors. So, no different to anywhere else in the world. Australian Speedway, when it's great, is absolutely fantastic. I guess the aim there is to have more great experiences for everybody, and that's obviously what we're seeking to do.
And initially, was it a matter of just getting in there and finding your feet, or did you tackle it head on straight away when you got into the role? Because you started December 2015, so it's nearly coming up to 2 years now.
Yeah, look, we had to get in and do a whole lot of things that maybe necessarily weren't in the plan, but I think we're at this point now, as I say, where things are starting to happen, and if you look at, say, the achievements in the last 12 months compared to, say, my first 12 months, a lot more has happened as we've managed to build some momentum and get some things cranking along.
Yeah, and tell me a bit about what the things that you've been introducing since you've started.
Oh yeah, look, I guess some of the things that we're pretty proud of that we've achieved in the last 12 months, for instance, is we reinstituted the Hall of Fame and tied that in with the Australian Speedway Awards, and obviously we had one last year. We've had two now in the last 12 months. That really, really good for the sport and really well received. Also, we had a national forum in June. That was a bit of a start about bringing the sport together. That's, I guess, our motto now.
How was that received? That was mainly for people that were running the classes?
Yeah, so that was more about divisions, and obviously we had a bit of a stakeholder survey ahead of time to get some feedback from people, but it was just to start the communication amongst divisions. We recognise, you could have a prize for if anyone knew how many we recognise, but it's 77 divisions around Australia, and bringing those people together, looking at ways to do things more efficiently. Do we need 77 different structures, or do we need one structure, or 5 or 10? Who knows? But if we're going to do this the best way we can, then it's clearly better for everyone to be talking. And that was our aim, is to start that conversation and lead the way there.
Yeah. And what's been the proudest achievement that you've had so far?
Oh, probably that June weekend where say the Speedway Awards and the Hall of Fame stuff. I mean, if you're at the Hall of Fame and you see someone like Alan Butcher or Phil Hareen with Tears and Rock, Jason Crump even, that who missed his son's first ever race meeting to be there. That was pretty special. And
typical Speedway racer.
Exactly. No, that was a highlight, and it's something we know we can build on, and we can get it to a level that's a lot more above where it is now. But we've got to start from somewhere, and that's obviously what we've tried to do in the last 18 or 20 months, I guess. Is build a base and make sure it's a stable base so we can go forward.
Yeah. And what's the point of the awards, apart from the obvious one? But is it bringing classes together? Is that part of it as well? Is that a big thing? And having conversations with drivers, meeting other classes that wouldn't necessarily.
Oh, well, not necessarily. I mean, I guess that one of the thrusts of the awards is that we've grouped all the divisions into 5 categories, like karts or youth or open wheel sedans and modifieds. To start, I guess, comparing or making people feel that the winner is an award, where you've beaten off 700 or 800, 1,000 other competitors to get the trophy. But it was about recognising the achievement within the sport, not just competitors, but obviously, things like track of the year, most improved track, innovation. We want to be making people think about what they're doing new and that kind of stuff. So there's an award for that and all that kind of stuff. So it's just about celebrating the good things in the sport.
Yeah, and speaking to, from a personal point of view, speaking to drivers, and like a guy like Timmy Reedy who brought the house down at the most recent awards night, he was like, it was great to meet other drivers, like chat with James McFadden, the sprint car guy, and all those sort of things that I guess drivers wouldn't necessarily get that opportunity to do that.
Certainly, awards around a state level, or whatever, tends to be divisions celebrating their own achievements. Whereas, by bringing everyone together, you are actually able to compare yourself, talk to them. And that's a big part of it. And we were able to fly Tim in from Darwin and that kind of stuff. And, people winners from Perth and Queensland, all that kind of stuff. It was just great.
Yeah. And going forward with the awards night, how is that? What are the plans for the awards night? Is it going to get bigger, or are you just happy to stabilise it? Or
I guess the key, if you dilute it, and I guess this is where maybe we're going to start changing topics here, but, if you dilute things too much, you start to water it down a bit, then you don't have that necessarily that peak performance or whatever. If you had, imagine if we had 77 competitors of the year instead of the 5 or 6 that we do now. Straight away, you're diluting that, and we're keen, I guess, not to do that and to lead by example on that. And so at this stage, the 12 or 13 awards we've got, plus you throw in the 5 from the Hall of Fame, you've actually got a whole night of entertainment anyway. So, you have to start earlier or go later, and then, it's not necessarily fair on, people who've made the journey and that kind of stuff. So at this point, it's in a good place, and I guess, without putting words in anyone's mouth, it seems to be trucking along okay. So we'd probably keep it at that level, I guess, for a little bit.
Yeah, okay. So now we've some hard-hitting questions, Tim, that we've got that seem to one of the hottest topics that's been for many years is class rationalisation. As I say, a lot of people want class rationalisation, but they don't want it to be their class. What's Speedway Australia done in that area?
Yeah, okay. So I guess
because there's a lot of misconceptions there about people thinking, they're letting all classes in, when that's definitely not the case.
Well, look, certainly the first thing if you're trying to bring the sport together is, should you be chopping it up into smaller pieces? And I think, our survey we recently did, about 3/4 of people thought there were too many classes in Australian Speedway. Obviously, well over half of them are sedan classes. So, does that mean that you want to start rationalising that? How would you go about it? Well, I guess from our perspective, the first probably point to get across is that, we're not going to force anybody to merge with anybody else. But certainly we're happy to have conversations or help facilitate things and that kind of stuff. And one of the interesting stats out of the survey that we did was, we were able to break that information down. And there were some classes or divisions in the survey where 100% of the respondents in that division agreed that that their class could merge with someone else. So maybe there's some places we could start having those conversations, rather than necessarily making people butt heads against each other, because it's never going to work. But if there's some places where we can get some movement happening, then, we'd love to facilitate.
Is that a job that Speedway Australia can do in terms of recommending, or what power do you guys have when it comes to classes?
We have no power. Look, the key there is it's got to be a joint decision from everybody's behalf. You're talking about the divisions themselves, the competitors, the tracks that are running them, then, you know, tracks have a big part to play in this as well. So, you know, unless we can get everyone talking about, you know, on the same page, it's never going to happen, you know. And I think, you know, as I say, there's over 40 sedan divisions, but, you know, we're not going to sit there and say, right, from 1st of September next year, you and you are all together. That's not going to happen.
Yeah. So that's, yeah, with that. And what do you feel can be this? Is it starting a conversation to start classes?
Yeah, look, I guess
merging, or yeah.
Well, I guess, you know, we have access to information, you know, about competitors and divisions and who's running and what and that kind of stuff. So maybe that's where we can start, is by actually getting people, you know, on the same page. You know, you talk to someone in Queensland and they think they've got a division and it's unique, but in actual fact, there's the same division in every other state. They just don't know about it. You know, there's a lot of things probably that we can do with our knowledge, you know, and start having those conversations with people. But, you know, it's just not our brief. You know, we have to stick to what our job is, and, you know, it's not running divisions, it's not telling people what tech specs are. So, you know, all we can do is point them in the right direction and see what happens.
There's a misconception out there that Speedway Australia is letting all these classes in. Can you inform us about how many in the last 18 months you've approved?
None. No, they're, you know, we aren't in the business of, we have a policy around the creation of new classes. In my time, we've had well over 20 requests. None of them have been successful because they haven't either even gone to the point of, you know, our criteria is published on our website. Anyone can log in and see what you need to do to create a class, and, you know, it hasn't happened in my time. And, you know, the hurdle was quite high because, you know, we know that spectators want good racing, drivers want good racing, you need cars on track, bigger fields, that kind of stuff, and it's very hard to achieve that if you're slicing everyone into smaller chunks.
What are the questions when people are trying to approach Speedway Australia to start another class? What kind of tactics do they use, or what questions do you throw at them to?
Well, one of the things I ask them, and it's the same conversation most times, you know, are you trying to achieve what you're trying to achieve because there's a new technology, or there's a new idea, or are you trying to do this for political reasons, you know, to break away from somewhere else? And every answer so far has been, well, it's a political thing, you know, we can't work with this group, or, you know, they're too far away, or something like that. And that's, you know, effectively, from our perspective, not a good enough reason to, you know, to split the sport even further. We've just got to bring everyone together, whether we like it or not. As a sport, you know, we've got to do the business as a group between us, working, you know, on the same page.
Yeah. Another question that we've got here, Tim. In regards, tell us a bit about the current state with the staff members that you've got running Speedway Australia. Like, in my opinion, I think it's never been healthier, with people, the right people in the right positions, and the people that love Speedway. Passion's important, but also being professional at the same time.
Well, you just answered that question, so we can go on. No, look, you know, apart from the two guys that have been the longest, the rest, everyone that's come on in my time is a Speedway fan. So, you know, I'm a lifer, so are most of the other guys. And, you know, that means they understand, they get where people are coming from. You know, if you're dealing with someone on the phone, or dealing with an issue, you've been in their shoes, or, you know how important it is to them, and you want to help them. So, you know, that's a big thing of, you know, what we're doing now is, you know, we understand, we get it. You know, we've either run divisions, we've run tracks, run other governing bodies, or whatever. You know, we're you know, everyone, there's like a queue to rush off to the Classic, for instance, you know.
Everyone wants to put in leave at that time.
Yeah, so guess who stays in the office and that's it, you know. No, and it's a big thing, you know. If you've got engaged and passionate staff, you know, who get the sport, then it's definitely a help.
Yeah, because Speedway is a sport that you need to love it. It's not, from the outside looking, it's tough, but if you actually understand it and really have a passion for it, it can really help you.
Oh, without a doubt, you know, that's the thing, you know, it's someone said to me once, it's a bit like a cult, you know, it's a closed loop where it's inert and there's no one coming in or leaving, you know, but it's not true, you know. We can develop, and we're always hearing about new people getting into the sport, you know, but we need more, you know, we need to grow and, you know, sustain ourselves so that in, you know, 30, 40 years time, there's still Speedway.
Yeah, okay. All right, so next question we got, World Series. So last season it celebrated its 30th anniversary, 31st year this season. Tell us about how it's all coming together and, yeah, where it's at. It sounds really positive.
Yeah, obviously we haven't announced all the names yet, but we've certainly advised that we've got 20 deposits received from teams. So, you know, there's going to be a huge buzz around that. The schedule's locked and loaded, and obviously we've branched down to some areas we haven't been for a while this year, so it's going to be, I think, an absolute classic of a summer.
So tell us, without letting too much out of the bag in terms of the drivers that have been released, like Lockie McHugh, Jai O'Keefe, so Queensland and Victoria. Tell us a bit about the mix of the drivers that have put deposit without releasing names.
Well, I think, it'd be fair to say that, the whole country is covered pretty much. And yeah, a lot of people who maybe have been in World Series before coming back, or people who are, good enough to get out there and see how they get on everywhere around Australia. They're probably your obvious names. But yeah, we'll just have to sit tight for a bit longer to get them all confirmed.
And tell us a bit about, like, one of the glowing omissions from the calendar was New South Wales. Tell me why there is no New South Wales round.
Look, yeah, that was a question that came in ahead of time, and no track in New South Wales was interested in running World Series, so we aren't there. It's just a fact of life. There's costs involved, and the venues in New South Wales obviously didn't feel that it was going to be viable for them to do it, and it is a big commitment for tracks. It's a major commitment, so you've got to look long and hard at it, and if it's not for you, then if you're not 100% committed, you wouldn't do it, because it's a big ask. So we had a lot of venues who were interested and made the decision this year to head off to Tasmania, and that was based around the fact that the Australian title's in Mount Gambier, so it's reasonably close and it fits in with the flow of the series. So they're going to welcome us with open arms, and it's going to be absolutely fantastic. Yeah,
and Tasmania is really one of the hidden gems of Speedway. It's from per capita, they've probably got the biggest following.
Definitely, Tasmania is growing. It's a great place to race Speedway and all that. I guess the weather's probably not as good as elsewhere, but apart from that, they've got
Zealand, isn't it?
good competitive numbers. And they've got if you're talking, without talking about divisions all day, for the size of the state, they have a lot of competitors, which means they're going to have good racing.
Yeah. And in terms of the tracks, what is the main, when you're looking to select tracks and drivers for that matter as well? You've been inundated with track requests, driver requests, like looking 20 cars that have registered or put a deposit down. What's been the difference when last season there was only 6 contractors drivers?
Oh, I think it got to the point where everyone in the sport realised that World Series needed to be nurtured and looked after, or it wasn't going to be there. I think it's probably, when you're down to 6 contracted drivers, I think it's not rocket science to see that potentially the writing's on the wall in some way, shape or form. So it's great that, people are so committed. It's just so heartening to see that there are, people willing to spend goodness knows how much money to trail around the country and race sprint cars, with the series that we're organising. So it's really heartening.
And what about the tracks? What are the main things that you look for when you are selecting rounds?
Clearly there's obviously, if you've been involved in the past, there's an element of, not necessarily first cab off the rank, but certainly, you want tracks that are loyal to you, want to reward. And then, as I say, in terms of going off to new venues, the decision was made this year, as mentioned, to tie it in with where the Aussie title was, so it flowed through the calendar, so we wouldn't have drivers going back and forward across the country, because it's a fair old tow.
Yeah, and in terms of, is it with new tracks that come on board or submit requests, what's the process with that? Do you give them, obviously they get a fair go, but is it kind of doing a feasibility study, whether they can afford it?
Oh, look, it's all those things, but it's got to work for everybody. It's got to work for them. It's got to work for the series, for the drivers, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, there's a lot of effort, and I guess thought goes into where you're going to go. And I guess one of the key changes from last year is the number of rounds we've backed off on that, which straight away mean it's harder for a new venue to get involved when you're looking at less rounds. Yeah,
and getting Tasmania on board, obviously you've touched on one of the biggest things with Tasmania that struggles is that big lot of water that's there, getting over that. What was the whole point of getting Tasmania back on board? Because it's been nearly pretty much 10 years since World Series was held there, and they held an Australian title in 2014, and that was a struggle to get numbers to come over there. What's been put in place to get the drivers?
Well, I think the key there is that World Series has proven, I guess with the interest this year, that it's still a strong brand. So it's yeah, Tasmania's in there, but I think, it'd be fair to say that most places in Australia, probably apart from New South Wales, there were venues wanting to get on board, but ultimately the decision flowed around the schedule more than anything. Obviously, Tasmania are going to give it a red hot crack to make it work, and that includes offering support to logistics and all that kind of stuff as well to make sure that the boat side of things is covered. And
was that the big thing that got it across the line?
Not necessarily. I think as I say, there was a lot of options, but it wasn't just the boat that meant that Tasmania was the preferred one.
Yeah. Okay. And tell us a bit about how World Series and the Ultimate Sprint Car Challenge. Many people, the naysayers, have been saying that the USC is going to sink World Series. What do you say?
Well, I say to anybody, have a look at the big tracks in the sport, and we're all working together. If you look at the Australasian Speedway Promoter Association, who's involved in that? It's the Sydney to Toowoomba Murray Bridges plus the tracks that are, I guess, the backbone of World Series and stuff. So I think we all know that we all need to work together. So any, I guess, misconceptions that are out there, it's not true. The sport is in the position where we all need to be going in the same direction if we're going to go forward. And
it's proof with the competitor numbers that you've got, that have registered interest and put a deposit down to show that.
Yep. Oh, look,
last season was a tough one, but
yeah, it's a shorter calendar and all that kind of stuff. And obviously, sprint car racing is strong as well, which makes it easy too. But the way things have panned out, it's made a huge difference. That's for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Well, all right. And tell us a bit about, apart from the awards night and the forum and all that, tell us a bit about other initiatives that have recently been introduced by Speedway Australia.
I guess one of the things we've been really conscious of, I guess since my time is making sure that we are starting to support venues in an appropriate fashion. So, you would know too, and I mean, obviously we've been active on our Facebook page and that, showing people where we've been in the last 12 months. We've been out and about and visited well over 70 tracks. It was a huge manpower effort, but that's all about, seeing how venues are running, obviously helping them to do even better than they are, but, finding the lie of the land and how we can help them move forward. And obviously, for example, was the initiative announced today in terms of reduced insurance premiums for those tracks. That's a direct result of us knowing what's happening at track level and, going to the insurer and everyone accepting that we're in a position where tracks can now pay less for their insurance because, you've got that knowledge about what's actually happening on the ground.
So travelling around to different tracks, you've ventured to tracks that aren't Speedway Australia affiliated. They've been affiliated maybe in the past, but not. How has that been met? Because there is a lot of misconception, there's a lot of anger there towards Speedway Australia from certain tracks. How has that been met?
Oh, look, I think the whole Speedway Australia has been controversial in some ways ever since it was formed. But I guess, me coming in, not knowing necessarily any of that, but being a Speedway person, we just want to work with everybody. And it doesn't really matter whether you're a Speedway Australia venue or not, we want to talk to these people and find out. I mean, obviously our insurance is valid at non-Speedway Australia tracks as well for drivers, if they're running in their class and that kind of stuff. So, we still need to know what's going on there as well, but we're happy to talk to anybody. I guess that's the key, and we've had good progress. We've had some success there, but, as long as we're all talking, then, we're going to be making a difference.
Yeah, so it's about being transparent and not going around and visiting the tracks.
Yeah, no, look, we have been transparent. We've been totally open about the fact that, we want to get out there and make a difference. And it's a lot easier to make a difference when you've met people face to face and there's concerns and where they're doing things well. And, we learn, we can spread the news about what's happening at some places that that are going really well and how we can help. One of the things we maybe haven't talked about, for instance, is when we went around the tracks, things like signage and stuff like that was maybe in need of a bit of liquor paint here and there and stuff. So one of the things the board decided to do was we'll just supply signage to all tracks and that kind of stuff. Take one of their tasks away from that they have to do, but the fact that we're getting the same signage for 80 odd tracks means you get economies of scale and do it cheaper and that kind of stuff. That's where we can add the value, in actual keeping venues functioning, helping them run efficiently and let them focus on, bringing the cars and the crowds.
having travelled around to Australia to most of the tracks, what status surprised you, or would you say would be a sleeping giant in terms of speedway?
Oh, I think it's probably everywhere. I mean, I think most places probably underrate themselves, and that's a real key. There's literally so much good stuff going on, and that's one of the things we've made a strategy about, actually starting to spread the word about that. Because there's a lot of good stuff. We just went through New South Wales, and there's so many good stories there if you choose to look. So I think that maybe the sleeping giants is the actual sport itself. Is actually really healthy in most places if people actually choose to find out about it. So no, I mean, I'll give the big tick to Speedway as a whole. How's that for a cop out?
That's transparent. Crosses the board. Next question that we've got, in terms of you've had the Speedway Australia Rising Star, which was part of that for the youngsters coming through. Yep. You've recently introduced one for officials, which will include them going to World Series and getting experience. People under the age of 40. Tell us a bit about how that initiative came up.
Well, obviously we have our Rising Star program for competitors, and that's young competitors under 23. And the aim there is you're investing in people that are going to provide a return to the sport. Over a period of time. That's the aim. So when it comes to officials and trying to develop the talent of officials, you've got to start somewhere. So we decided, we'll start with I guess younger officials, like you do with younger drivers, and the average age of officials is just a tick under 60. So, there's about 300 odd eligible officials under the age of 40. So, there's 5 of them will be chosen to come on the road on World Series and immerse themselves straight into it and learn a lot. So, look, we had to start somewhere, and as I say, the younger competitors. So same philosophy, younger officials.
Yeah. And how do you feel that's going to help? What's the objective for that? Apart from getting experience, is it just getting them more, keeping them involved and getting more enthusiasm? Because it's hard to find officials and volunteers.
It's hard to find officials, but also, people need to experience, what the good things and maybe the not so good things about the sport. And if you're doing 5 nights of racing in a short space of time, you're going to be exposed to a whole lot of stuff. And I can tell you from going around, in some of the maybe the more rural parts of Australia, and there's some really good officials out there, and they deserve to be able to showcase their talents, on the big game and on the main stage and stuff. And that's what it's all about, is getting those people and giving them a chance to see what's out there, and maybe bringing them out of their comfort zone and seeing where that takes them as officials.
It's certainly going to put them in the deep end doing speed work. It's quite a daunting task for them, but hey. Nothing like the acid test.
Well, it is. Hopefully we don't get the amount of rain we had last year, and we'll actually get 5 nights of racing. That would be obviously the main aim.
Yeah. And one final question from that before we go to the answers that have been supplied from readers of Totally Speedway. Plans for the future for Speedway Australia. Obviously you're making announcements and that, but what are your goals moving forward?
Well, we've got a strategic plan that we put out to everyone 2 or 3 months ago, and we live by that plan. There's 9 pillars in the plan, and we as staff are accountable to the board around delivering that plan. I don't have it on me, but as I say, it's all on the website. But it's actually a live document. It's not something that just gets pinned up on the wall and we look at it, and we actually are aiming to achieve it. And I mean, that's obviously about sustainability and growth and engagement and involvement. And all those kind of things, all the, I guess, the buzzwords, but it's actually all true. If we want the sport to be here in 7 years' time, we've got to lay the groundwork. We've got to work with everybody, and that's what the plan's all about.
Yeah. Okay. So now we'll go over to the reader questions. Okay. So the first one, so talking about the under, yeah. Why do you only want people under 40 for the officials program? From Tracy Finlayson in Tasmania.
Yeah, look, as I said, we had to start somewhere, and look, we'd love to take every official on we'll put them through a Rising Star program or something like that. But as I say, have to start somewhere. So for year 1, that's where we're sitting in. The philosophy of Rising Star is developing young talent. So hence, it's not that we're trying to exclude anybody else or anything like that deliberately, but just that Rising Star brand is about developing the younger end of the spectrum.
Okay, I've got one here from Gazza Smith from Bundaberg, so he's a sprint car driver. If you have a current license of insurance such as SSA or Speedway Australia, can you be dual registered with a different licensing body and race a non-Speedway Australia sanctioned event?
Well, from our perspective, it's not an issue. It's not something we get involved in. I know certainly some divisions do, and that's their prerogative, not for us to say yay or nay. But yeah, from our perspective, you buy a license and you go racing. As I say, it varies by division, and that's for them to get themselves involved with. So sorry, not just a cop-out answer, but it's just not our core business in terms of running divisions, and we leave them to it.
That's where you got divisions and sanctioning bodies and all that. So okay, another question: why won't you separate your license and insurance, and who are the shareholders? The company NASA that is linked to Speedway Australia. It's from Bevan Francis in Perth, Western Australia.
Okay, so I guess the license and the insurance. Obviously, from our perspective, just I guess for clarity's sake, a competitor license includes complementary insurance. So this has been in place for a long period of time. Well before I was even on this, great brown land. But it comes back to, I believe, that back in the day, there was only there was no option to get alternative insurance, and the decision was made that we were going to do this for the good of the sport. So in other words, you work with insurers, you organise pricing, you include it so that everyone on the track's covered, and it's better for everybody. The last thing that we need as a sport is an incident happening where there becomes an issue around either liability or insurance and stuff like that leads to difficulty for the sport. So the theory behind it is, a chain is only as strong as its weakest link. So if everyone's as strong as they can be in terms of protection, then it's better for everybody. And look, our scheme's paid out millions of dollars to injured competitors and officials, just this decade. So it works well, and it's just a given from our perspective that it's a necessary part of having a Speedway Australia license.
Yeah.
In terms of the shareholders of NASA, obviously that's a matter for the public record. Probably the first thing to note is that NASA Proprietary Limited and NASA Inc., who between them comprise Speedway Australia, have been separated from a structural perspective, so that NASA Proprietary Limited and those shareholders, the 18 shareholders, they are owners of the building where Speedway Australia is located and the Speedway Australia truck. That is their, the shares, the company that they own, that is what it does. The actual running of the sport is separated from NASA Proprietary Limited into NASA Inc. I, for instance, am a NASA Inc. employee, as is everybody else. World Series is run by NASA Inc., the insurance, all that kind of stuff. So the shareholders, which there's a 50-50 split between tracks or promoters and competitors and divisions. All the major players in the sport are shareholders of Speedway Australia, like Sprint Cars, SSA, Speed Cars, Warrnambool, Mount Gambier, Sydney, Brisbane, Perth, Nowra even, etc., etc. So it's a matter of public record. Anyone can tootle onto the ASIC website and have a look to their heart's content.
Yeah, okay, good answer. I've got a couple of questions here from Ray Healy in Portland, in New South Wales. First question, is there any way that we can address how the recommended basic roll cage for demo derby cars is currently making it impossible for Speedway Australia and short tracks to attract competitors for demo derby events?
Okay, so what he's referring to is when we put out our new rule book last week, one of the things we did was move the demolition derby rules out of the track operators manual, which is a booklet that the tracks get, and we moved them out of there into the rule book. And we did that because demolition derby is something that obviously thousands of people get involved in, and they have the right to know the rules. So we moved them out of the track operators manual. The rules themselves are actually less stringent than they were. So the roll cage and stuff is actually less than it was 3 weeks ago. But what we've done by moving the rules into the rule book is it's made it obvious that in some places they didn't have access to the track operators manual, they'd lost the track operators manual or whatever, so that they weren't necessarily running to the demolition derby specs that we thought they were. So we want to work with venues and stuff. So we are looking at some other demolition derby specs for maybe some different types of derbies and stuff like that. So I guess stay tuned, but yeah, the point is that the rules have always been there, and this hasn't actually been a strengthening of the rules, because they've always been the way they are there. So yeah, so look, we need to work with Cullen Bullen and everybody else to ensure they can run derbies in a safe fashion, but get people out on the track, because it's a great place to start in Speedway.
Yeah, it's great for crowds too. Certainly, demo derbies play a big part in attracting crowds for especially non-Speedway people.
Yeah, 100%. So look, I guess look, Ray and everybody else needs to work with us on that, and we've got to get. Obviously, it's important that the rules are followed, because obviously, we talk about insurance again and all that kind of stuff. Demolition derbies are probably more risky than non-contact sedan racing, for instance. So you've got to make sure that everyone's on the same page there, and that was one of the reasons why we put it into the rule book, so we could bring everyone onto the same page.
Okay, and Ray's second question, he's getting 2 here, I'm just feeling generous. Should state-based divisions get more support, as it currently seems that national classes such as speed cars get more of a voice and more money within Speedway Australia? What's your opinion on that?
Ray is, I think, from memory, tied up with the RSA, who are a big part of Speedway Australia. They're one of the shareholders. And what he's talking about there is support for divisions and things like that. So, look, and what I'm going to say here is that the same answer that we said at the National Forum with the divisions we had there was, at this point in time, we haven't had many requests from state-based bodies. So, get a request in and see where it leads you. I think if the board look at everything on their merits, in terms of things to invest in the sport. So, if someone puts a good case to the board around what they can do to develop the sport, it doesn't matter whether you're a state or a national division or anybody else, we'll look at all good ideas.
Okay, fair enough. All right, here's another big one from Ira Felberg from Perth in Western Australia. Why do you enforce the illegal third line forcing by bullying clubs not to allow any other insurance, even though it is totally illegal in this country?
Look, I think I don't know how many times I've heard that in my time, and I think that the key there is around choice, but it's a choice for tracks. They have a choice around who they affiliate with, and they also have a choice to be run and look after themselves from a liability perspective too. So I think everyone talks about the ACCC and that kind of stuff. If you look at the history on that, what is happening around the country, the ACCC have ruled on that stuff numerous times, and we're still going forward and doing this stuff. So it's not about third line forcing, it's about a choice for venues for Speedway Australia. Speedway Australia chooses what it wants to get involved with and doesn't want to get involved with as well, So
does that come down to your insurance?
Well, I mean, if you look at things like, for instance, a couple of years ago when the V8 non-win sprints started up, and which is obviously a good topic of choice. That's not a Speedway Australia decision. We work with the SCCA, the Sprint Car Control Council. They are the body that operates sprint car racing in this country. So we, I guess, listen to them, respect them, and they make the decision around what happens with sprint car racing, not us. So if they believe something. And look, as I said before, it's really hard to get new classes off the ground, deliberately so, because the sport is chopped into 77 pieces at 80 odd tracks. So there's reasons why you do and don't do these things, but ultimately the sport is a spectator sport and it's a motorsport. There's an element of danger there, and everyone needs to be safe as possible. And from our perspective, we know we have insurance schemes that work and have paid out millions and millions of dollars. Whether we like it or not, it's just a reality check for us that we're not as safe as table tennis, for instance. So making sure everyone's covered is a key part of what we do. And as I say, it comes back to that choice around wanting to work with certain divisions, wanting to work with bodies and tracks that we're comfortable with and that they're comfortable with us. So that's where it sits.
Yeah, okay, good answer. Here's another question. That's from Terry McLean in Mareeba in far north Queensland. Why do smaller clubs have to pay the same licensing and registration insurance costs as larger clubs, along with requiring medicals for our drivers and replacing our safety gear every 2 years, when these rules are drastically affecting our driver numbers? What do you say to that?
Okay, well, I guess two things there. That tracks don't necessarily pay the same as everybody else when it comes to the insurance side of things.
Depends on their rating, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, and the classes they're running. So
Yep.
A sedan-only meeting with, say, 30 cars or 40 cars in a country track is a lot less expensive than a full-blooded sprint car meeting. So, in terms of that side of things, it's fair and equitable in terms of we inspect the tracks and decide what they can and can't run, and then they select the events they're going to run, and they pay the permit fees. So that's a fair and equitable scale nationwide, and that's to do with the cars on the track, not anything else. In terms of replacing safety gear every 2 years and stuff like that, I mean, that comes back to, we are affiliated to, for instance, the SFI, and they create standards around, I think safety belts is the one with the 2 year life, and that's something they have experts involved in that, not us, as a governing body or a peak body for the sport. They're the ones who've done the testing. I think belts are the classic example. The US Navy did the UV testing, and a seat belt in 2 years loses 70% of its strength. Can't necessarily see that, but it's a fact. I mean, anyone can look this stuff up, and we affiliate to the SFI because they are the experts. We don't pretend to know everything or have the capabilities of testing belts, for instance. We pay money to them to be a part of their scheme. They do the testing. They tell us that a seat belt will degrade 2 years or so, not long after that, after it's manufactured.
So does that mean that it stretches more, or what? Tell me a bit about what they mean. If it's like with a seatbelt.
Without having some sort of degree that enables me to speak about it. No, I have looked this stuff up, and
yep.
A UV. So we're getting hit with radiation all around us now. Your cell phone, your computer, radio waves, all that kind of stuff. Sunlight, etc., etc. Belts just existing on the planet for 2 years lose their strength. It's just a fact, and that's why they have a 2 year life. Now, I think the US Navy did that testing, and it's 70% of the strength just sitting in the shop basically. So hence, there's obviously a margin of error in there, but they're the ones. I mean, obviously they've made it even. You're right there. Yeah. Okay, cool. They've made it tougher by putting the expiry date on the belt now rather than manufacture date. So it's not that, for instance, isn't going to change in time. So that doesn't matter whether you're doing one race meeting or 100 a year. They put that 2 year life on it as a safety mechanism, so that the chances of a failure are extremely remote. So that's their call, and we are happy to hitch our horse to the SFI boat and make sure that everyone's as safe as they can be.
And what about what do you say for a track? Far north Queensland, Mareeba, Kirribilli Park. What do you say that they're obviously struggling in terms of numbers? How can they? Is it all as part of this, or what's your opinion on that?
How long have you got? We've only got 15 minutes, but we know. I mean, I guess the key about this is we understand where they're coming from. I feel that. I mean, I've been to Mareeba. It's an absolutely fantastic venue. And it needs big fields of cars, so to draw a crowd and be sustainable. How's it going to pull big fields? By everyone working together, by making Speedway something that people from the area want to get into and all that kind of stuff. That's where the sport needs to pull together, because we can't fix it on our own. It depends on so many other people all going in the same direction to get to the point where more people are driving in the gate at Mareeba on a Sunday.
Yeah. Okay. So following this question, here from Jeremy Smith, he's from Latrobe in Tasmania, he's a wingless sprint driver. Should there be a set price for insurance across each track in Australia?
I guess in that regard, that's up to venues to decide. They determine what they're going to charge, and again, we don't get involved in that. We have our areas of expertise that we get involved in. We don't determine what sauce goes on a hot dog in the food caravan. We don't determine what they charge people to get in the gate. So, and look, I mean, some tracks own their own venue, some lease it, some are getting a free lease, some are paying large leads. There's all those kind of things. Some can get access to cheap volunteer, fire crews, and others have to pay the fire crews and that kind of stuff. There's so many variables around Australia that mean that, it's up to each venue to do what's best for them.
No, fair enough. Okay, so we're here. A question here from Timothy McCulloch in Hobart, Tasmania. Why do we pay pit entry when we hold a Speedway Australia card?
Yeah, well, look, that's I guess the same answer applies. Tracks get revenue in various ways. Some charge it at the pit gate, some do it in other ways. Some charge $3 for a drink, some charge $4 for a drink. It's just the way they operate their business, and that's not for us to get involved in. We aren't experts in that. We, licensing, World Series sprint cars, that kind of stuff. That's us, not what they're going to charge to get in the gate.
And I guess if you don't want to pay pit entry, you can get a Speedway Australia gold card.
Silver card, win the Australian title, and if they agree, then you're in free for the year. So it's
someone like Tim Reddy in the MK Nationals,
exactly.
And sprint cars.
That's right. So there's 19 drives around Australia, but that's a small portion. So that's, I guess, good on the tracks for allowing us to operate that scheme. But it's up to them to determine most of the things that probably people, ask questions about, and that a lot of it, isn't actually Speedway Australia's call.
Yeah, okay. I've got a question here from Chris Dovac in Brisbane in Queensland. Should drivers in every division be required to have a 3-layer race suit to improve driver safety, as opposed to some divisions only allowing 2-layer race suits?
Well, look, in terms of safety, again, you're always going to recommend to people to go as far as you can. But, in terms of the layers, without, again, being an expert, a 1, 2 and 3 layer suit give you a certain number of seconds of protection. At this point in time, the standard pretty much worldwide is a 2-layer suit. And, that seems to be everyone's comfortable with. So, obviously, a 3-layer is going to be better, but at this point in time, I think, everyone's comfortable with having 2 as the minimum standard in most cases.
Okay, so we've got another question here from Darren Forrest, who's in Croydon in Victoria. What can Speedway Australia do to have RSA street stocks conform to SSA street stock and national specifications? Is there anything where they can do a happy medium or something like that? Speedway Australia's take on that, because it is a very contentious.
It's a contentious issue, but I guess the key point to make there is both street stocks and RSA street stockers are growing, which is great. Street stocks are the biggest class.
Does that make it hard because they're both very strong in their areas, so they're not going to?
I mean, it's not. It's not for us to to make that decision. We would love to have discussions with groups, and we from our perspective, sedan racing is if you look at the sheer numbers, sedan racing is the backbone of Australian Speedway, and if groups are talking and that kind of stuff, it's better than if they're not talking. But as I said earlier, we're not going to force anyone to do anything. But in a perfect world, would you have 40 sedan divisions in Australia? I think the answer is pretty obvious, isn't it?
Yeah. So it's a matter of you guys to be the mediator or something if something was to help them.
Well, is that an area we need to focus? I guess is the key. And if the discussion's not even on the table, we're only going to get a bloodied head if you bang your head against the brick wall. So I'm not saying that it's not on our agenda, but I'm not saying that it's top priority either. As I say, there's some divisions in Australian Speedway where 100% of competitors are interested in merging with someone else. But no, we're not here to I guess arbitrate or whatever, or force anything on anybody, because it's never going to work. You've got to, if you're talking about aligning specs, making people change cars or whatever to conform, well, that's a decision that their bodies need to make. It's not for us to do that. But as I say, we're happy to facilitate.
And it all comes down to a vote, doesn't it, between the competitors?
Well, look, that's the way most divisions are structured. That people within it do have some form of say about where they decide to head, and it's not for us to trample over their rights by any stretch.
Yeah, okay. So we're done with the reader questions now. Just got a few more, Tim, for myself. So tell me a bit about the scope of Australian Speedway in terms of getting it to be more marketable. That's one of the things. We need more TV, we need more media, we need everything. Like, what's your take on that? What does Speedway as a whole in Australia have to do in order to raise its profile?
Well, I think, I guess for me, we don't have all the answers at Speedway Australia. I think, our goal is to help everyone do what they do efficiently and effectively. So to lay the groundwork, to take some of the paperwork, some of the administration off them, so that they can actually start to focus on that stuff. Remembering we're not, yes, we run a sprint car series, but we're not marketing sedans or modifieds or open wheels or anything like that. So we don't necessarily have the answers there, and I guess that's maybe people don't necessarily want to hear that, but it's our focus is on our core is to help everyone grow, and at the moment we can see that the easiest way to do that is to help people manage their affairs and do it as efficiently as possible, so they can spend more time thinking about it, I guess, is the key.
Do you feel that there's too much paperwork amongst associations and all those sort of things?
Look, I don't think there's any doubt. We recognise 210 clubs around Australia, so that's 210 secretaries, 210 treasurers, 210 AGMs, thousands of committee meetings. None of those things actually help to get a car on a track. They do in terms of the philosophy or anything, but that's not organising cars on track. And cars on track is where the sport's going to grow. If we can remove some of the time they spend, just existing as a group, then we'll help them get cars on track. That's where we can see that we can add the most value at the moment.
Do you feel that competitors are doing enough to help grow the sport?
I guess one of the things that we talk about is from our perspective is competitors need a place to race, and that's, I guess, at this point in time while we're focusing on the tracks and looking after tracks, and when we can't just click our fingers and fix what's happened in the last 90 years, but we can certainly going forward try and add some value and make it easy for them, because it's obviously easier to start a division than to start a track. I've had far more requests for new divisions in a year and a half we have to start new tracks. So we need to focus on helping venues stay in business and grow, and from there the thing flows. So competitors, I'd encourage get involved at track level and ensure that where they race will stay open and grow and move forward. As a lot of them are. Don't get me wrong. There's so much good stuff happening out there at every track in Australia, and it's just a matter of helping them to, I guess, sell themselves and sell the sport.
So marketing in terms of Speedway Australia, certainly they've improved that and been more productive with its own marketing through social media and all those sort of things. That's certainly letting people know what's happening. How's that all been received?
Well, I guess we've tried a whole lot of things over, I guess, the last 20 years, and one of the big ones you hear about is TV coverage, for instance.
Everyone's obsessed with that, thinking, we need more TV.
Well, at the end of the day, people aren't watching as much TV, Anyone who's watching this isn't actually sitting there watching TV, and you'd be the same as me, where you'd spend far more time looking at your phone each day than you would a television. So we've just got to accept that we can't just fork out a big wad of cash and get TV on prime time and everyone's going to watch it, Speedway on TV, sorry, and everything will be rosy. It's not reality. There's so many options now for everybody, and that's why we're involved in social media and that a lot more now, because one, it's cost effective. You can see, the response you're getting. We know exactly how many people are watching this. Whereas if you're having a TV show, you don't really know how many people are watching it, and what part they found interesting, and all that kind of stuff. That's where social media's got it all over. Other forms of marketing. So we once we've got the feet under our desk and starting to be able to make a difference, we've started to massively get involved in the social media stuff, because we know people are looking at it and they're interested and we know it can help the sport progress.
Do you feel that tracks need to embrace it a lot more?
I think everyone needs to embrace it more. There's no limit to this stuff.
Because everyone's attached to their phone.
It's just growing and growing. So you've got to get on board. And we're lucky in our office that we've got some of those skills, and we're able to do some of the stuff reasonably quickly, and got the contacts to get stuff happening. We're happy to help. That's the key. We if a venue needs some assistance or a division, we're happy to talk to them and see what we can do to help them.
Speaking to that, in terms of having having grants and that. Tell us a bit about what Speedway Australia's do for grants, because a lot of people wouldn't know too much about the grants that Speedway Australia does offer, and that tracks have ability to get if they submit.
Well, I guess there's 4 categories of grant, as you'd say. I'd call it a grant, but anyway, that's another story. We support divisions, we support venues, we support Australian titles, and we also support grassroots events. So each year hundreds of thousands of dollars goes off into those areas. And look, one of the things, I guess, the QBE track grant was an initiative that over the last 9 years has put hundreds of thousands of dollars into tracks. But obviously today we've announced that that's on pause now, because the decision's been made to, I guess we've got some massive insurance savings coming, so better off for every track to get the benefits for this year, rather than having, say, 15 tracks getting a grant, for the year after or something like that. So that one was a biggie, but it's paused now because we can actually put almost 8 or 9 times that amount into actual savings for insurance. But no, look, there's Australian titles is something that that's something we started last year, and the Speedway Australia truck and manpower and a bit of financial help every nationally recognised Australian title, for instance. But as I say, there's grassroots events where we heavily give out some money to worthy venues there, and as I say, it's been mentioned before, the divisional grants too.
So what's the process? What do people have to do? They have to fill out a form and submit it to Speedway Australia? For
a grassroots grant?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's that simple. It's something that is underutilised. So, we obviously, if we've got hundreds of requests, we wouldn't be able to service all of them, but certainly at the moment, there's certainly scope there for venues to get some help.
Yeah. Okay. One final question, Tim. Where are the Speedway as a whole? Where has it made the biggest gains in general?
In what period of time? Sorry, just
like now.
I think where is it making gains? It's certainly making gains in terms of spectator facilities and safety. That's obviously got to be sold and transmitted through to people to make them understand that the speedway is growing and there's stuff happening and that kind of stuff. But in terms of moving forward, if you look at some of the photos from days gone by and that kind of stuff, and look at safety fences now, and straight away there's your key driver for having family entertainment and stuff, is the fact that venues are 10 times, 20 times safer than they used to be. And as I say, that's it's not easy to start a track. It's certainly a lot easier to save one. And as a sport, that's got to be an area of focus for us to look after those tracks, because they're like little gold nuggets, and they're there, and the chances of if we've got 85 tracks, the chance of 85 new ones starting up is extremely remote. So we've got to look after the ones that are there, that's for sure.
Are some of the tracks closing or struggling for a reason, because it's just not the supply and demand there?
Oh, there's a whole lot of factors. Again, we haven't got 2 hours or something, but there's so many factors. There's everything we've touched on today. Makes a little bit of difference, and that's why, from our perspective, if we can make a little bit of difference in a lot of areas, we know that we're gonna help those venues. So that's our key determinant at this point, is to actually do that and add some value.
And what about drivers, sprint cars in particular? A lot of them are travelling more and more overseas now. What is that doing to help the Australian industry?
Oh, there's no doubt that if you are, it's like, I guess this is my economics background, but any time you're interfacing with more and more people, you're going to learn things, you're going to grow, and you're going to get better at what you do. So if there's 50 drivers over in America, it's probably more as of right now, racing this week, they bring those skills back, they bring those talents, they bring networks, they bring new ideas, and that's exactly what you need. You can't exist in a closed loop. You've got to be looking at what's happening elsewhere, to grow and pull those ideas, because that's what we need. Is we need people thinking about how they can make the sport better.
And is that there's a lot of younger drivers? How have the younger drivers been nurtured apart from the Rising Star program?
Well, I think the key there, the obvious thing is that the fact that there's so many people been involved in the sport for such a long period of time, and you've got to tap into their knowledge, and I think that's exactly what's happening. You know, there's support networks, there's mentors out there that are teaching these guys, helping them. You know, they're people who've experienced problems or adversity before, you know, are able to pass on that knowledge to people and that kind of stuff. And obviously now, if you're looking at, you know, drivers heading overseas, for instance, you know, there's they're the next wave, and their forerunners are, you know, are helping them, you know, develop and achieve.
Yep, no, that's cool. Well, Tim, that concludes it. We've got about 20 seconds to go now, but how did you enjoy that? How did you putting all these questions?
Look, I mean, you know, it's great, and it's what I love, and, you know, educating people about what we are and what we're not, I guess, you know, it's the best part of the job. We love this stuff because, you know, we know that, you know, we've got a story to tell, and you know, we're making a difference, and, you know, we want to spread that word to as many people as we can so that, you know, we can help them achieve what they want to in the sport.
That's cool. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in. So this will be available now forever. So yeah, Tim, thanks very much for coming in and making the time. It's much appreciated, and hopefully we've answered people's questions and yeah, that they've been wanting. So thank you very much. Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Thanks.